Well, it's time for our regular gender reveal segment with binary spokeswoman Kirralie Smith. We do this segment because when it comes to gender, our society doesn't know whether it is Arthur or Martha. Well, Kirralie, let's get into it. Let's go to the Paralympics. And I'm sorry, this is no laughing matter, but I guess you have to laugh or you'd cry. But in the Paralympics in Paris, an athlete who has won 11 national men's titles qualified for the Paralympics 400-metre women's semi-final at the age of 51. After the sport's governing body accepted his eligibility. The Daily Mail reports that Italian Valentina, I think that's how you pronounce it, Petrillo, a father of two, who was competing at 45 as a male and claims an entitlement to enter the female category for the sake of happiness. Good grief, Kirralie. He beat a Chinese runner who was 18 years younger than him, although the media reports him as her. It's madness, just madness.
It's madness and it's offensive and it's utterly ridiculous. This middle-aged man is obviously having some sort of identity crisis, may have a fetish, and now he's having a sook as well, Lyle, and crying and saying trans people are suffering and he shouldn't be criticised for taking away the place of a woman and for thrashing other women in women's sport.
Yeah.
It's like, you've got to be kidding me. No one's going to stop him running. He can run, but he needs to run in his own male category and leave women alone. This is a real act of misogyny on his behalf and on behalf of the authorities that allowed him to participate.
It sure is, Kirralie, and without wanting to be crude and offensive to our viewers, it's clear that there's quite a bulging package there in this man who's competing with women. I mean, this is just utterly making a joke of women's sports.
Absolute mockery, Lyle. It's they're not even trying to hide it anymore. It's not, I guess there are some males who identify as female who you have to take a second look at, but once you see their jawline or their Adam's apple or the size of their hands and feet, you go, oh, that's definitely a man. This guy is definitely a man and he displays it for everyone to see. You see him against the other women as well and he wears the skimpiest bottoms that he can possibly find, whereas the girls will often wear running shorts. He is exploiting his position here and it is grossly offensive.
Yeah, no, the sooner something is done about this, the better. We just need some courageous politicians, but we keep talking about that and nothing happens. But we won't stop. Kirralie, down in Victoria, a place where a lot of this wackiness, at least in the Australian context, emanates from, and this is quite serious, the Victorian government has confirmed they are committed to indoctrinating children with sexual ideologies. They've released a toolkit to ensure little children are exposed to sexual orientations and sexual identities in the state's libraries. You've reported about this on the Binary blog. What's going on?
Yeah, well, and the key word here is sexual. We're talking sexual identities, sexual orientation, sexual ideologies that are not appropriate for children and not really appropriate for anyone in society because most of it's based on a lie. No one can change their sex. But the library toolkit now is asking librarians to constantly ask little children as young as 3 what their pronouns are. Like, children they don't even understand what a pronoun is at that age. And here we are forcing this really insidious ideology onto them. It's sexual. I don't understand why there are politicians in this country that think it's acceptable to sexualise children. And I have commented before, I think this whole push will end up in that if children can consent to changing their sex, they're going to push for saying that children can consent to having sex. And that is absolutely off the table. And we need to stand up now while there's still time.
Very well said. This is none other than state grooming of children. Kirralie, I want to remind viewers of something that was very confronting, an image that you posted on Facebook last year. And I think we need to remind our viewers of this. This is you with the police at your home. Just remind our viewers what was going on here.
Oh, look, Lyle, when you reposted that on this morning on social media, it actually made me cry. And I ended up laughing, remembering that day as well, when the police officer came to issue me with summons to appear in court because I had identified male bodies in female soccer competitions. And I think he was as bewildered as I was. I was asking, well, what is a woman? And, is he proud to go home and tell his mum that he had to issue summons to a middle-aged overweight woman because she called a man a man. And this has been 18 months of hell for me, having to raise over $100,000 so far, fight 6 court cases so far. I've got court cases 7, 8 and 9 still ahead of me, all for calling these men male and saying they don't belong in women's sport. Now, this just does my head in. I feel so sad for the federal court saying to Sal Grover that people can change their sex.
Yep.
It's based on a lie. It's not true. They have no evidence. So our courts are no longer based on evidence, Lyle. They're based on ideologies, and our politicians are the only ones who can change this. And as you've already mentioned, they have zero appetite to do so. So it's up to us to vote accordingly, but also to really lobby those politicians with the real world consequences of what they've done.
Yeah, Kirralie, I just think that politicians who tolerate something like what has happened to you and to many others, you mentioned Sal Grover, I'm involved in 4 years of litigation with no end in sight as well. You had the police turn up on your door, and our politicians think, well, that's okay, and nothing is done to ensure that no other Australian ever has the police lobbing on their door to serve them with papers because they told the truth about biology.
Look, it's really disturbing and it is distressing. It's something I don't wish upon any Australian. And, let's face it, there's enough violent crime going on in this country that the police have far better things to do than to turn up on doorsteps like mine to issue such ridiculous, vexatious claims.
Absolutely. Kirralie, just finally, talking about ridiculous things, our public servants now just out of control with all this gender ideology. We've been sent at ADH TV a number of signature blocks from public servants now, giving acknowledgements to the LGBTIQA plus leaders, to Wear It Purple Days, all manner of gender-confused ideology running around on the signature blocks of taxpayer-funded public servants.
Yeah, well, look, I guess the one upside of this is it identifies them immediately as liars, that you can't trust anything else they've put in their email if they're going to put that on the end, because it is utter nonsense. We know what a woman is. We know what a man is. We don't need to put it in our labels. And for them to do so is just virtue signalling in the highest degree. It's not necessary. It's offensive, but it does help us understand where they stand, and we can take those emails with very much a grain of salt.
That's right. Yeah, our public servants are supposed to be apolitical, not pushing political and sexual and other agendas. Well, Kirralie, really appreciate all you're doing in the fight, and appreciate your time again this week. We'll look forward to chatting again next week here on ADH TV for Gender Reveal. Thanks so much.
As always, thanks for having me, Lyle.